Welcome to Inside the Arena, your source for everything off the ice, off the court, and outside the field of play. With your hosts, KOMO Sports Director Niko Tamurian and KOMO Senior Reporter Chris Daniels.
Look at all those people that aren't outside the studio right now.
Yeah, they're over there.
Niko, they're somewhere over there. Figments of our imagination.
All working hard on their newscast, but yes, they're here.
Episode 7 of Inside the Arena. You just heard David Lee. He's the smooth voice there, longtime sports voice, joining us here for what is now, Niko, a 3-point play.
Which I love, by the way. Of course, podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. We love that you do that. Also, check us out on the KOMO News YouTube page. And now, referring to the triple play on Seattle's CW station, KUNS. That'll come up on Friday nights at 6:30. We love being able to watch it on the big TV screen in your living room.
I think the kids like to say, smash that like button.
Yeah, do it.
Smash that like button on YouTube and then smash your remote to get you over to the CW on Friday nights.
Yes.
We've got a lot to talk about on this episode of Inside the Arena. For those who have not joined us, I thought it would be good to give them a little backstory. This is a show that really is dedicated to talking about what's going on off the ice, off the field, off the court, the business of sports, and, of course, the return of the Sonics. Over the last 6 weeks, we've had Brianna Treat from Climate Pledge Arena talking about sustainability and the environment, Doug Baldwin, Cliff Averill, Caitlin Clark. Yes, she appeared on this show for a little bit there.
A little bit.
Lenny Wilkins, WSU Athletic Director, Ann McCoy, World Cup organizers here in Seattle. This week, we have a big guest. I think he's a big deal.
He's a great follow on X, Twitter, whatever you like to call it these days.
Yeah.
And so when you were telling me you were reaching out to Bob, I was like, oh, that's really cool. I like to hear that.
Yeah, Bob Thompson, the former president of Fox Sports Networks. He's going to join us, talk about negotiating rights deals, the breakup of the Pac-12, how you can watch UW and WSU this year on different TV networks and streaming services, the impact of the NBA TV and digital rights deal, which a lot of people are watching in Seattle as it pertains to the return of the Sonics. But first, Niko, we do this every week. 4 corners, we touch them all. What's good, what's bad in local sports and local sports business. And the crowd loves it every week.
And you know who that is cheering right now? That's Justin Hollander. That's Scott Service. That's the Seattle Mariners.
Oh, wait. That's what they do at Mariners games, too.
Yeah, when they get a strikeout.
Yeah.
Yes. My positive is the Mariners draft for 2024, and here's why. We certainly know the M's have things to work on, okay? Their lead was 10 games. It's down to 1 at the All-Star break with a massive, massive series against Houston this weekend. I can't wait for that. Second half is going to be interesting. We know that. But what I want to talk about positively with the Mariners is that one thing undeniably they have done well under Jerry DiPoto is run the draft. Think about the homegrown talent that have been picks from the Mariners, never been in another organization, and have been downright stars for this team. Logan Gilbert, an all-star this week. George Kirby, an all-star last year. Cal Raleigh, arguably the best player on the team, at least this season. And those are all guys drafted homegrown. So if the Mariners want to draft an ambidextrous pitcher, which I think is hilarious, it's awesome.
A switch pitcher.
Now, yes, and for the record, he can't do that mid at bat. Like once he commits to a left or right-handed approach from an at bat, he has to stay there. He can't alternate pitches, by the way. That's what the hilarity, because there's a video about 20 years ago that happened.
Wait, can I put you on the spot?
Yeah.
Have we learned yet how to pronounce his name?
We do. It is Jurangelo Sinja.
Very nice.
Yes. And did have to refer to my notes really quick, but Jurangelo Sinja. And a great story. And played for Mississippi State, where very few people know. I got an online meteorology degree from. Yeah. So I was like,
wait, that deserves a...
Do not ask me the forecast. I couldn't tell you a darn thing about that. But here's the thing. If they want to take Jurangelo Sinja, ambidextrous pitcher in the first round, I'm all for it. They want to take a high school pitcher, Ryan Sloan, in the second round. Who am I to question? Because it's the one thing they have undeniably nailed is the draft. 14 of those 20 picks were pitchers. Not all of them are going to hit. That's normal. But draft is in the books. I'm really excited about what they did, if for nothing else, because of their track record in doing that.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see how many of these prospects they trade away too.
Oh boy, that's going to be a topic, because the next couple of weeks here are going to be bonkers with trade rumors and actual trades.
Well, I'll tell you what else is bonkers. Just reading stuff online, and this is going to be my positive. UW and WSU in NCAA Football 25.
Where's your clap button?
Oh, wait, here we go, right there.
I can actually clap too because I love it.
Yes, you played it, which we'll talk about in a second. But what I was going to say, just from a positive aspect, this is a video game that a lot of people have clamored for. It hasn't been released in 11 years, been totally redone. WSU and UW are part of it. NIL now has allowed players to opt into it, get paid for having their name, image, and likeness as part of this game. But on the positive side, we can debate all that. We could probably do a whole show just on this video game, but it's a great advertisement for the University of Washington and Washington State University. You have played it. You've seen it firsthand. The idea that the team runs out of the tunnel. We see the Husky. We see Harry the Husky running out. You know, at some point they will have Butch the Cougar in it, hopefully in another software update, but it's showing off Martin Stadium. It's showing off Husky Stadium. For young kids today who are playing this game, that's how they get interested a lot of times in universities or applying to universities. So I think it's a great thing for the UW.
Oh, without question. It is the ability to be able to figure that out with NIL and to get these guys some money. It's not astronomical, but to get these guys some money. And at the same time, listen, this isn't the Paramount thing, but it gave a lot of people a lot of joy. I mean, I can remember being younger. We're talking like the game came out in the 90s originally. I remember being a kid and having sleepovers with my friends and doing NCAA football tournaments, creating our own schools and things of that sort. I mean, I'm almost 40 now. I'm not going to do that now. Maybe play when my son goes to bed. But yeah, this is just a really cool win-win-win all around. It's going to help at a time when the sport is so fractured and there's so much about it that doesn't make sense. You can go in there and just put the Pac-12 back together and pretend like it never happened for a couple hours a night. I just think it's all positives and it's really cool. Okay,
let's talk about what's negative.
How bad I am at NCAA football. That seriously is what I want to talk about from a negative standpoint, because I was controlling UW and I lost to the Cougs 42-14. And that wasn't like me endorsing one school over the other. It was just, I just picked one, wanted to see Dubs run out of the tunnel. And so that's my negative, how bad I am at NCAA football, but I hope everybody else is having a much better time than me.
Well, I will talk about what also is negative. It's at the UW.
Sure.
Yeah. Right, I mean, you and I talked about this off air.
Yeah.
They have to build a Big Ten broadcast control center, and the athletic department. I'm holding the document in my hand for anybody watching on YouTube or the CW. They went to the Board of Regents last week, the athletic department, to spend $18 million, up to $18 million, on broadcast equipment, control rooms, building on the east side of Hecked, or I guess we're supposed to call it Alaska Airlines Arena.
Yes.
But Hecked, because they don't have any way to broadcast the games anymore with the dissolution of the Pac-12. They're not part of the Pac-12 enterprises and that whole network. So you have to factor this now into the Big Ten move that they're spending millions of dollars. WSU, by the way, using the Pac-12 enterprises to distribute their content, and that is already there in the Bay Area. So UW has to build that out, and they're also it's not related to the control room, but they are also tearing down the old historic pool over in between Hecked and Husky Stadium that's being used to expand the baseball or the basketball operations, I should say. And I know some swimmers are mad about that. So there's a lot of expenses right now for the University of Washington athletic department. And this whole move, because of the TV digital rights stuff that we've talked about, is a big one.
It is, and it's going to be really, really freaking weird to see games against Rutgers and Northwestern instead of Oregon State and I guess they're playing the Cougs still, but Oregon State and Cal and Stanford.
But they can still play each other in NCAA.
That's what I'm saying,
25.
man. I'm putting it together.
All right, so let's do what we do every week, and that's spend at least a minute on the Supersonics. Okay, the Supersonic Minute, and we do have something to talk about this week.
Oh yeah,
we last week, and we should be fully transparent with folks. We record this; it hits every Thursday, but we record this sometimes. And we were talking last week around the time of waiting on Adam Silver to say something at the Board of Governors meeting down in Las Vegas. He has now gone on record talking about where things stand with the TV digital rights deal. A reported $76 billion with a B dollars for the NBA through Amazon, NBC, and ESPN and potentially TBS TNT. He says they've signed off on what is a next stage. There's a question here he wouldn't talk about, a 5-day matching period for TBS and TNT, but he was asked about the connection between this TV digital rights deal and expansion, and that is where the people of Seattle are going to want to hear what he had to say here, because he actually gave a little bit more detail and a little bit more of a timeline regarding expansion. Here's what he had to say.
It's a bit more complicated than is suggested sometime, because just think of the new media deals, for example. Once they're completed, when you bring in new partners, you're diluting those payments, of course, to teams. So sometimes it seems as if we're printing money when we expand, but actually it's no different than selling equity in any business. So I think there needs to be a fair amount of modeling with the league office, working with existing owners, and really thinking through the long-term prospects. Again, not just economically, but also potential for dilution of talent. Having said that, I think we will engage this fall in earnest in the process of making those determinations. Should we expand? And if we were to expand, how many teams should we expand, and what markets should we be looking at?
Chris, coming out of that, I want to listen. I can follow this, and certainly I have. But full disclosure, I got here, you weren't here yet, so I had to cover KOMO's base. Then we got Chris on our team, so we're covered. But as somebody who has been on this story 2 decades, basically, and covered the ups and downs, and I'm sure I'll ask you this again as we go through this process in the next few weeks. You hear something like that, and maybe to the average person at home, it's like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean to you, and does it raise your anticipation of this whole thing?
As I've told you before, I think when Adam Silver talks, he's very skilled at this, and so is David Stern before him. They make statements that are meant for external purposes and internal purposes. So what you just heard in his statement was talking about the idea you're giving up equity in the league, but at the same time, he's telling people, hey, by this fall, we're going to have a conversation about expansion and how this is going to work, how many teams to add. He's already said Seattle and Las Vegas more than once. So what we just heard from him matches up with what we've discussed here on this show, that October to December is when they're having this expansion conversation. I think what he just laid out there really makes it even more concrete that they're going to work out this TV digital rights deal, and then right around the start of the next season, get down to talking about expansion and how that's going to work. And
I'm going to make a glorious prediction. All-Star Game 2025. He says, you know what? We're going where we're going. Hopefully Seattle and Vegas.
Well, that would make sense since they're right down the road in the Bay Area. And also it would make sense in terms of giving enough of a runway to the cities, the teams to prepare for expansion. But that's the very latest from Adam Silver. And, one of the folks that I wanted to talk to and you wanted to talk to, Niko, and hear from is somebody who has been in the room where it happens, to borrow a line from Hamilton, and that is Bob Thompson. He is the former president of Fox Sports Networks. He has dealt with universities on TV digital rights deals. He's dealt with leagues, professional leagues on TV digital rights deals. And we talked to him about all of this, not only the current state of affairs with college sports, but also professional sports and how this could all work with the NBA.
Fox Sports Networks is basically the non-broadcast side of Fox Sports. So while I was there, we had all the regional sports networks. We had Speed Channel. We had, Fox Soccer Channel, a variety of U.S. domestic channels. We also owned a portion of Rogers Sportsnet in Canada. We owned a portion of the Golf Channel for quite a while. We owned a portion of Outdoor Life Network for quite a while. And then we also managed a variety of international sports networks as well. So my area was more on that side of the business. So I dealt with all the local professional teams in MLB, NBA, and NHL, the product you would see on your regional sports networks, as well as the collegiate products, because back in the 90s and early 2000s, Fox Broadcasting didn't play in the college world. They were strictly in the collegiate world. And then we started picking up a few things on the collegiate side for the broadcast network as well. And since I had the contacts, I helped them negotiate a lot of those deals. The original BCS deal, getting involved with the Big Ten on the Big Ten network, those type of things. So that kind of distinguishes my duties versus what the guys on the broadcast network side did.
So what goes in when we start talking about TV and digital rights deals? I mean, what goes into putting a package like this together and making sure you have the distribution windows and all that sort of thing?
Well, you're looking to kind of mix and match and fill out your programming schedule to the best possible manner, in the best possible manner. And we used to look at it, and you hear this these days too. We used to look at it as things that you had to have, things that are nice to have, and things you don't need to have. And you're trying to get as many of the first two and as few of the last one as possible. And you need to mix and match for different seasons of the year. Certainly on the RSN standpoint, baseball was a stalwart because it takes up 6 months out of the year. Then you have NBA and NHL. You know, if you have those, it's great. If you don't, you can mix and match with college basketball, college hockey, and things of that nature. So you're looking to fill all those windows that you have and the days you have. 24-hour days, 7-day-a-week sports channels, you know, they're insatiable eaters. They just churn through the programming. So it's a kind of a never-ending effort to get better and more programming that you can afford, and it's going to, you know, bring in, like, the cash register ring as well.
It isn't, when you talk about the priority on some of these sports, whether it be college football, baseball, MLS, NHL, NBA. I mean, isn't there a discussion too about how many advertising windows? You're talking about a 3-hour, 3.5-hour broadcast versus 2 hours. Doesn't that come into play somehow?
Right. I mean, what we would do is basically run a P&L on each property and figure out what the revenues were going to be in terms of, you know, how many breaks you get in any given game, whether it's, like you said, 2 or 3 hours. What kind of affiliate revenue we might get from the cable operators. So those things would all go into a calculation, and that would help lead us to, you know, the decision on what we could afford to pay from a rights standpoint to the teams or leagues or conference.
The return on the investment, so to speak.
Correct.
So a lot has changed in the last few years with the world of streaming. It seemed like just a year ago we were having this conversation about the future of the Pac-12 and how certain university presidents wanted to stay on linear and certain university presidents wanted to go all in on streaming. What can you say about just how that world has changed, even in not in just the last couple of years, but just in the last year in terms of broadcast TV rights?
Well, we're certainly at, I think, what you would call an inflection point, and where, you know, the bundle world of linear broadcast and cable TV is still, you know, not as healthy as it once was, but it's still a very large group of people. So you can't just avoid that. Yet you also have to start moving into the streaming world. And I think what we've seen is, you know, a couple of years ago, we saw people kind of sticking their toe in the water. Well, now we've got people who are, you know, up to their waist. So they're really playing in both worlds. And I think, you know, the new NBA deal is really emblematic of that. You've got streaming, and it'll be on Peacock, and it'll be on ESPN Plus. It'll be on ESPN, the mothership, once they go direct to consumer. You're also going to have a piece of product on Amazon Prime Video as well. So, you know, virtually the NBC package will also air on Peacock. So almost every game is also going to be available streamed as well as on linear TV, except for the exclusive Peacock games, a few exclusive ESPN Plus games, and probably the Amazon Prime games obviously won't be on linear television. It'll be streaming only. But it's a much broader streaming package than certainly anything else that's out there right now in the major pro sports.
But I thought all the universities in the Pac-12, or I shouldn't say all of them, some of them just wanted to avoid streaming. That was the argument, was that they needed to stay on linear, and it looks like in the University of Washington's case, they're going to end up on Peacock at least once or twice during the course of this year. When you look back at that decision, and hindsight, it's always easier to see clearer. What do you think about this deal that these schools have now splintered off and are going to be on multiple platforms?
Well, I think being on multiple platforms is a lot different than being 100% streaming. Like I say, the MLS, other than a few one-offs that Fox aired last year. I just don't think it's time to go that far yet. I think certainly having a healthy dose of your events on streaming for those people who have totally cut the cord and are not playing in the linear television world makes sense. But I'm still not there for 100% when there's 50 million more or less linear cable subs out there, and paying every month to their cable operator or to DirecTV or whoever.
As far as Washington State, Oregon State, they're on the CW. Full disclosure, here in Seattle, it's on our sister station in Seattle. So there's going to be several of those Coug and Beaver games on over-the-air broadcast. What do you think about the deal that they ended up signing this year, which gives them broad visibility, distribution, but maybe not the financial benefit that they would have somewhere else?
Right. I think for OSU and WSU, it's absolutely the ideal situation. I mean, other than ending up in a E4 conference. For now, coming in kind of last minute, being able to together that deal with the CW for the 11 games and then the 2 Fox games as well. And rumor is it's about $1 million a game, something like that, which would make sense to me. But for them, it's not about the money. It's really about the exposure. They have seen those type of deals, with the NCAA and the different collegiate conferences, where there's a pro rata addition at certain teams if they expand or if they contract. I have not seen that on the professional side. It doesn't mean it's not out there. I just have not run into it. I would think that probably if I'm the TV guy, I'm going to fight that and say, if you want to bring more people to the table, you're going to have to eat less, or you're going to have to cover it with the franchise or with the expansion fee. And that would, kind of offset what people might lose in terms of, some money on a yearly basis to, make sure that the new entrant is paid in, comparable to what the other guys are. And that's how I believe they've kind of covered it in the past with the expansion fee.
Well, let's end with this. I mean, it's been a rapidly changing environment over the last 3 years, then the last 2 years, and then especially here in the last year. And we continue to see a change. It seems like almost on a monthly basis, the idea of linear versus streaming and RSNs, put RSNs into that. Where do you think this is all headed in the next year or two?
Well, one thing I know is if you look back over time, it's harder to kill off a certain type of media than people think. When TV came out, everybody thought radio was dead. When cable came out, people thought TV was dead. When streaming came out, people thought cable was dead. There's probably some kid in a garage or his basement right now designing something that's going to blow away streaming. So I think all this stuff is going to kind of coexist together. I think as a consumer, you're going to have to pick and choose where you want to, plant your flags and how much content you actually want to get, because it's going to be much more scattered, and it'll be, you're going to have to kind of pick and choose through the various offerings to decide what's your perfect package. That's what I think will happen in the next 2 years. Beyond that, boy, it's anybody's guess. I mean, this whole business just changed so fast.
Very fast. And now we can watch it all on our phones too. Hey,
Right.
Bob Thompson, former president of Fox Sports Networks. That's a tongue twister. Thank you. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Good to see you, Chris.
Good to see you.
You get me with the crowd noise every time, Chris.
Applause for Bob.
Yeah, first of all, super insightful, and I think that that's important, as you noted going into it, for any Sonics fan that has just been waiting for 16 years for this whole thing to come around, and it feels like we're in the home stretch, to understand why you and I are so excited about the apparent closure of this TV rights deal, because it is the last hurdle, and that's it, and that's why it's so exciting.
An inflection point, he says, and also even listening to Bob again, it makes me in a way miss the days of cable television with the idea that you can flip back and forth on a Saturday afternoon, watching games. That's not the experience anymore. It's you're switching between apps on your Apple TV or your Amazon Fire to watch games between Peacock and Apple TV and Amazon, and it's
and
just,
you're ultimately paying about the same amount of money.
Yeah, and we're back to paying cable TV prices for streaming. Hey, we're almost out of time, but we've got to have one thing first, right?
I'm just glad you remembered what button it was. Hey, my final thoughts here. I want to go with what we just talked about, the NBA and this timeline, and I want to give kudos to Adam Silver. This is not like, hey, Inside the Arena is praising you, come back to Seattle. No, that's not what this is. I just really respect and appreciate the way he does business. I respect the fact that this timeline he is stuck to, from collective bargaining to media rights and then turning to expansion, this is something he has said for years now, and he hasn't swayed from it one bit. And in a sports world where commissioners, it doesn't matter the sport, it doesn't matter which commissioner it is, they can be on shaky ground. They can kind of hem and haw between things. They can backtrack. They can do a lot of things the fans don't like. Adam Silver, first of all, is universally respected, and he's got my respect, certainly, for the way he's handled this timeline, knowing that there's two cities especially, certainly more than that, but when you talk about two cities specifically like Las Vegas and Seattle that are just waiting on the edge of their seats for different reasons, but ultimately with the same goal to see what happens here. So shout out to Adam Silver. He is stuck to this timeline, makes the reporting on it a little bit easier because you know what to expect. And he's very clear. And I love that what we played from him earlier. He was like, I can't tell you everything. He was just brutally honest about it. He didn't try to dance around it or try to give you some veiled comment. No, he just said it like it is. And I have 100% confidence when he can say the TV rights deal is done, when he can say his expansion committee is formed, and ultimately, hopefully, when he can say the NBA is returning to Seattle, he absolutely will.
Well, and let me get this in before the final buzzer. We didn't say it off the top of the show, but the Climate Pledge Arena has already announced an exhibition game between the Clippers and the Blazers, third year in a row, October 11th. You just heard what the commissioner said, an expansion process in earnest this fall. Could we be talking about something around October 11th that would get fans excited that are watching the Blazers and the Clippers at Climate Pledge Arena? I'm not saying there's going to be an announcement then,
right?
But I'm saying October could be really interesting for people who have followed this story.
You got me excited
for as long as I have. That's it. I think I've hit it before the buzzer. Oh, wait. There we go. There's the final buzzer.
There's kids in high school that weren't alive when you started covering that thing. Come on.
Thanks for making me feel old. And thank you, David Lee, for taking us out.
You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko and Chris. Please subscribe on your favorite platform. Until next time.